as a Californian yourself, what did you make of how they differentiated themselves tonight in this crowded field?
Well, look, I mean, I thought that Tom Steyer, his experience showed. He's run for president. They tried to jump on him a couple times. He's a conviction politician. And if you like, strong left-wing politics, he was your guy. The problem we have in California is we produce more billionaires than any nation or state, and we resent the hell out of them. And so I'm not sure how many people are going to stick with him because he's a billionaire. I thought Matt Mahan showed a breath of fresh air. He's a young guy. He's new to politics. He was pragmatic. But I think Becerra didn't do himself much good. I think he looked pretty squirrely on the Medicare for All issue. He was a little bit squirrely on some other stuff. He's been the rising star because of Swalwell getting out. I don't think he helped himself tonight.
There were a couple of dynamics. I mean, there's the Trump of it all, which we'll definitely get to. But for the Democrats, the 5 of them on the stage, I do think that in a state like California, you've got a lot of progressives. They're very liberal. But there's definitely a sense that they know people want some change. They know that Californians think things are not going so swimmingly in the state. Something's got to give.
Yeah, absolutely. Prices are high there. They each had to say something about the previous governor. You also have a situation where I think a lot of Democrats don't feel like this is the ideal ticket, that you don't have people on the stage that people are in love with.
Right.
Eric Swalwell dropped out of the race because he had sexual assault allegations against him. There are some major changes that need to happen within the Democratic Party. It's a moment of reckoning for the Democratic Party in California. But I do think that overall issues like the cost of living, affordability, healthcare, all of these things are still things that people care about in California, and there needs to be major change. And it's not just policies because of the president and the war. It is policies because the governor will likely be on the presidential ballot in 2028. And so this is also a referendum on him.
Brad?
I think you're right, Zoji, about that's California good Democrats do have to stare it in the face what has been happening inside the California Democratic Party that's led to the affordability challenges. Democrats all across the country this year have decided to try to make the election about affordability, but the most Democratic state in the country is the most unaffordable state. That's why 1.23 million people have moved out of the state and moved into places like Nashville and Texas. And so I only heard Matt Mahan tonight talk about affordability in a real pragmatic way of what he could do about it. He talked about eliminating the CEQA process, which is an environmental review process that makes infrastructure construction impossible. He talked a little bit about the tax problem, about how California is one of the highest tax states. I thought Katie Porter might have had a lane to do that tonight, but I didn't see it from her.
Well, let me play what she said about the billionaire tax. It's been so controversial in California. Listen.
This tax isn't going to fundamentally change California's economy in the way that young people and the working people of California need. It's a one-time tax, but we don't have one-time revenue needs. It taxes billionaires, as if half billionaires don't have 2 nickels to rub together and couldn't chip in a little bit more. So yes, to a progressive tax code. Yes, to the wealthy paying more. But this tax is about cheap political points. It is not about really fundamentally changing California's economy for the better. That's going to take real political courage.
Billionaires like me should pay more taxes, and the big corporations should pay more taxes.
Excuse me,
and
you
that's
literally
why,
said...
if this proposition is on the ballot in November, I'll vote for it. But going forward, we do need to go further. This is a one-time tax, and it also doesn't spread the money across the government the way everything else does.
That was one of those times they're kind of trying to jump on Tom Steyer, but he actually did pretty well for himself. So.
Well, if you support the billionaire tax, which actually maybe many Californians do, I think Katie Porter is betting that some Californians, they want a progressive tax system, but they think that this is like a 2x4 hitting their sort of tax-paying population over the head.
I live in Miami, and I can tell you almost every week right now there is some California billionaire who comes out as having broken a real estate record for buying a house in Miami that cost $200 million because they are all fleeing the state before a certain deadline, a year deadline, and establishing homesteads in Florida. So that's not helping the California economy. There are so many industries that have left California. The movie industry, which is so symbolic of California, most of the productions are right now happening overseas or in other states like New Mexico. It's happening in Canada. It's cheaper to fly people and film a movie in Scotland than it is to do so in California. So they are having very big issues. I think out of all of those people on the stage, somebody needed to stand out. That did not happen. I cannot believe I sat through 2 hours of them bickering instead of drinking margaritas at La Palapa tonight on Cinco de Mayo.
Nobody joined
I do think, that...
Sorry, we couldn't provide the margaritas.
These things are not mutually exclusive.
We definitely should have had some margaritas on set.
Listen, Tom Steyer's a progressive, and even though he's taken all the money from the coal companies, as Katie Porter keeps saying, he's, now an environmentalist and all of that. So I guess you like him. I have a hard time thinking that a state that is 40% Latino, that is pissed off at billionaires, that thinks they're not paying their fair share, is going to vote for Tom Steyer. It's obvious to me that Javier Becerra has inherited the Swalwell vote, that he's on the ascent, and that's why he was being hit on like a piñata, to go back to my Cinco de Mayo theme tonight by everybody.
Let's talk about the two Republicans who are on the stage. Steve Hilton, a recent California transplant from the UK, and Chad Bianco, who's a sheriff. Let me just show you the polls, because I think that to understand where we are here, Steve Hilton is sort of nominally at the top of this pack, to put it mildly. But this is all within the margin of error. We don't really know where this is going right now. But Hilton has the Trump endorsement. He was asked about whether or not he would support mass deportations. Didn't want to say. So how do you leverage a Trump endorsement to a victory in a state like California where Trump is so unpopular?
Yeah, it's a difficult puzzle to solve. Although I have to say for Hilton, I didn't know much about him before I started following this campaign. I interviewed him yesterday on my radio show. He's quite articulate about asking the right questions, which is this. If the state is failed, if the education system has failed, if it's an affordability crisis, if we're only one of 5 states where people are actually leaving instead of going into, if you have all these problems, is it a good idea to have one party rule for so long? And Hilton, I think, has articulated that. I asked him yesterday, is it possible for a Republican to get elected governor of California? He has a way to lay out the math that shows, yes, you could attract independents and even some disaffected Democrats who are sort of fed up with the fact that they live in a state that's beautiful and has all these things going for it, but has been so mismanaged that people hate living here so much that they're fleeing to Miami and other places. And, watching this debate tonight, watching Democrats argue with each other about how to raise more taxes, how to further ruin health care, how to let in more illegal immigrants, it makes you believe that someone like Steve Hilton, if you just articulate the right questions, sometimes that can get you pretty far in a campaign.
Scott. The only way a Republican wins in California if it's somehow out of this crazy jungle primary 2 Republicans make it. But if there is one Democrat against Steve Hilton, whether it's Tom Steyer, whether it's Javier Becerra, that Democrat is going to win.
And my response to that is, you're probably right. But my question is that a good thing? Is it a good thing for California to continue to just vote for the same party that has created all these problems that everyone seems to agree do exist?
Look, you're at a boiling point right now in California, where if an outsider with the right message came along, Arnold Schwarzenegger did that, you could get there. Unfortunately, it is a non-starter to have somebody who will not acknowledge that Donald Trump lost to Joe Biden in 2020. He just basically took himself out of the running. If he would just moderate on anything at all, he would have the opportunity, or anybody would have the opportunity, to point out a lot of stuff is not working. But that's not going to happen. You are correct. Snoopy, a Twinkie running against a Republican in California will win in California if the Republican is saying that Donald Trump
Katie Porter may put that to the test, though. I mean, she's one of the worst political athletes we've seen in a large state.
Give the woman some credit. She spent the whole night trying to be nice.
Trying, the operative word.
She's one of the least likable, most uninteresting politicians we see rise to the top in a large state. All the New England states eventually elect a Republican governor. Massachusetts did it for like 20 years in a row. The voters know that the legislature's got things under control from their ideological perspective, and they send some adult supervision. You see it sometimes in the South. Steve Beshear in Scott's home state, a Democrat governor in a Republican state. Eventually, it will happen in California because the legislature will manage the state to the point where the voters have no other choice. I don't know if it's this year or not.